What happens when the applause is for a version of you that doesn't even exist? You don't become a people pleaser overnight. You become one the moment the real you is no longer safe. Maybe it started with a look of disapproval, maybe a parent's silence, a friend's betrayal, a teacher's frown, and so you adapted. You smiled. You agreed. You learned how to become what the world wanted because being yourself felt like a risk. And it worked. People liked you. You were praised for being polite, helpful, easy to be around. But deep down, something never felt right. Because the more they loved you, the less of you remained. This isn't kindness. This is survival. And survival has a cost. But what happens when the mask becomes your identity? Carl Jung had a name for this performance: the persona. In real life, we do the same thing. The nice guy who never says what he wants because he's afraid of being rejected. The pick-me girl who changes herself entirely just to be chosen. They're not lying. They're surviving. They've learned that love often comes with conditions, and they've trained themselves to meet those conditions at any cost. But the cost is always identity. Imagine an actor who plays the same role for so long, he forgets his real name. That's what happens when your persona becomes permanent. You become the role. And the tragedy? Everyone falls in love with the character, not the actor. So here's the question. If everyone loves your mask, does anyone actually love you? The version of yourself you manufacture to survive. The mask you wear so the world doesn't see what's real. Because real is risky, real is messy, real is vulnerable. And at first it helps. The persona protects you. It helps you get through the classroom, the workplace, the dinner table. It's the armor that keeps you from being rejected. But here's the danger. When you wear the mask long enough, you forget it's not your face. And then one day, you wake up and you don't know who you are anymore, only who you're supposed to be. This isn't just about being polite. This is about how we become strangers to ourselves. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you said yes and immediately regretted it? How many times have you smiled while your soul screamed? And more importantly, who are you when you're not trying to be liked? Think about that for a second, because what you'll hear next will change how you see your personality, your past, and even your relationships. Let's go deeper to unveil the truth. Once you see the truth behind the smile, you'll never look at people-pleasing the same way again. You wake up and, without even thinking, you put it on. The mask. Not a literal one. Not the kind made of plastic or fabric, but something far more subtle, far more dangerous. A smile that's just wide enough, a tone that's just soft enough, a personality that's just agreeable enough. This is your persona. Carl Jung called it the interface between the individual and society, the version of yourself you present to the world. It's polished, adaptable, socially acceptable. It knows how to perform, how to please, how to blend in without drawing too much attention. The persona isn't inherently evil. It serves a function. It allows us to navigate the expectations of the world. It's the handshake in a boardroom, the small talk at a party, the customer service voice you didn't know you had. But here's the problem. Somewhere along the line, we stopped using the mask and started becoming it. Think about social media. You curate your profile. You filter your face. You highlight the wins. You erase the flaws. What you're showing isn't a lie, but it's not the full truth either. You've become your own publicist. And when the applause comes rolling in, it feels good. Dopamine, validation, reassurance that the version of you you've constructed is acceptable. But what happens to the parts you edited out? What happens to the silence behind the smile? The anger behind the kindness? The fatigue behind the constant performing? What if the praise, the attention, the relationships, what if they were never meant for the real you? What if they're attached to the version of you that doesn't exist? This is the crisis no one talks about, because it doesn't come with sirens or breakdowns. It comes quietly. It comes when you're alone, when the noise dies down, when you finally take off the mask and you don't recognize the face staring back. And in that moment, you realize you've built a life for someone you are not. The persona got you acceptance, but it cost you authenticity. It got you applause, but not love. It got you a place in the crowd, but not a place within yourself. And until you see that clearly, you'll keep performing, even when the stage is empty. It feels good to be liked. You already know that. The smile someone gives when you say exactly what they want to hear. The little rush when your opinion matches the group. The subtle reward of being seen as easygoing, nice, harmless. It feels safe, comfortable, familiar. But comfort isn't the same as freedom. The truth is, people-pleasing doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. You don't say yes because you're generous. You say yes because you're afraid that saying no will make you vanish. That if you stop being agreeable, people will stop needing you. That your worth only exists in the eyes of others. So you stay agreeable. You nod, you conform. And every time you do, your brain rewards you with a chemical hit. Dopamine, that tiny surge of pleasure. The same rush you get from social media likes, from praise, from being chosen. This is not self-love, it's validation addiction. Psychologically, the brain is wired to seek approval. From childhood, we're trained to connect praise with safety. A smile from a parent, a gold star from a teacher. Approval meant you were good. Rejection meant danger. So the child adapted, became likable, became useful, became what others wanted just to survive. But now you're older, and the game hasn't changed, only the stakes have. Now it's not just about avoiding punishment, it's about preserving identity. Because if everyone around you likes you, then maybe you matter. Maybe you're not invisible. Maybe you're real, so you keep chasing that high. But here's what no one tells you. Every time you say yes just to be liked, you're building a self that doesn't exist. A self that's hollow, a self built entirely on reaction, not intention. Eventually, the real you becomes so buried beneath other people's expectations, you can't tell what you want anymore. You start asking others before making decisions. You second-guess every move. You feel anxiety in silence, guilt in rest, panic in solitude, because you've built your entire self around how others see you, not how you see yourself. And when someone stops validating you, you feel like you're disappearing, not because you are, but because you've tied your existence to their gaze. This isn't your fault, but it is your wake-up call. Because the longer you chase being liked, the further you drift from being known. And eventually the applause dies down, the room empties, and you're left alone with the one person you've spent your whole life avoiding, yourself. There are parts of yourself you've buried so deep, you've forgotten they exist. The anger you swallowed because it wasn't polite, the desires you silenced because they made others uncomfortable, the boundaries you never set because you feared being seen as selfish. You thought that by locking these things away, you were becoming a better person, safer, kinder, more likable. But what you were really doing was amputating parts of your soul. Carl Jung called these buried parts the shadow, the side of ourselves we reject, deny, and hide from the world. Not because it's evil, but because we've been taught it's unacceptable. You've been told that being angry makes you difficult, that having needs makes you needy, that asserting yourself makes you arrogant. So you became smaller, quieter, more manageable. You molded yourself into something digestible, and you were rewarded for it with approval, praise, and temporary peace. But here's the truth. The shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. Repression is not deletion. It's storage. It's keeping a wild animal in a cage, pretending it doesn't exist while it paces back and forth in the dark corners of your mind, getting hungrier and louder and more desperate to be seen. Eventually it breaks out. Maybe it shows up in rage you can't control, or in tears you can't explain. Maybe in the way you numb yourself with scrolling, drinking, eating, working. Maybe in the way you feel nothing at all. Because when you repress your shadow long enough, life goes dim. You laugh less, dream less, feel less. You're alive, technically, but it's like someone turned the volume down on your existence. You feel like a ghost inside your own body, drifting, smiling on command, functioning but not living. And sometimes, without warning, it all collapses. You snap at someone you love and hate yourself for it. You fall into a depression that no amount of positivity can fix. You lie awake at night wondering how you got so far from who you were meant to be. This is what happens when you betray yourself for too long. The shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to reunite with you. It wants you to stop pretending, to stop performing, to stop apologizing for being human. Because the truth is, anger isn't evil. It's a signal. Desire isn't shameful. It's direction. Boundaries aren't rude. They're self-respect. But when you grow up in a world that tells you love must be earned by being good, you begin to exile anything that might make you unlovable. And in the process, you exile yourself. The most dangerous thing isn't being disliked. It's losing touch with your own soul. The shadow waits not to hurt you, but to heal you, to bring back the fire you buried under politeness, to resurrect the voice you silenced just to be liked. And until you face it, you will live a life that is technically fine, but emotionally hollow. The numbness isn't the problem, it's the alarm. And now you have a choice. Will you keep hiding the truth, or will you finally bring yourself home? There comes a moment, quiet but terrifying, when you finally say it. Number. You say no to a request, no to a performance, no to the subtle expectation that you'll bend, once again, to make someone else comfortable. And suddenly everything shifts. You're no longer the agreeable one, no longer easy, no longer safe. You're not being mean, you're being honest. But to people who only knew your mask, the truth feels like betrayal. This is where healing begins, not with yoga mats or daily affirmations, but with a rupture, when you're finally disliked. Not because you've changed, but because you've stopped pretending. This is psychological warfare, because society programs us from the start. Be good, be quiet, be pleasant, be chosen. And when you begin to deprogram that script, the discomfort is immense. Setting a boundary for the first time feels like setting fire to a bridge you never wanted to build in the first place. You feel guilt, doubt, panic. You ask yourself, what if they leave? What if I lose everyone? What if I end up alone? But here's what no one tells you. Being alone is not the same as being abandoned. Being disliked is not the same as being unsafe. And discomfort is not the same as wrong. You're not doing something bad. You're doing something new. Because for the first time, you're prioritizing truth over approval. And it hurts. Not because you're broken, but because you're detoxing. Detoxing from years of shrinking. Detoxing from the lie that love must be earned through self-erasure. Detoxing from the belief that you must keep others happy to deserve to exist. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But privilege doesn't come cheap. It costs comfort. It costs illusions. It costs the applause of people who only clap for your performance. When you stop being who others need you to be, you find out who was really with you and who was only with the version of you they could control. In that moment, that terrifying, clarifying moment is liberation. Because finally, you're not playing a role. You're not contorting. You're not calculating your words to keep the peace. You're simply real. And yes, some people will leave, but the ones who stay, they'll know you. Not the mask, not the shadow of politeness, but you. And more importantly, you will know you. And that, after everything, is the beginning of freedom. There will come a moment that doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like death. Not of your body, but of your illusion. The mask you wore begins to crack. Not in some grand explosion, but slowly, like porcelain worn thin by pressure. A slip in your voice, a truth said without apology, a line you refuse to cross, even if it costs you everything. The persona, the carefully constructed self you used to survive, starts to crumble. At first, it's terrifying. You feel exposed, unguarded, raw. The world you once belonged to no longer fits, and the people who once praised you grow quiet, uncomfortable, distant. But something else happens too. In that space where the mask once lived, something ancient begins to rise. Not a new version of you, but the real one. The one that existed before you were taught who to be, before you were told what was acceptable, before your soul was put into a costume and paraded for approval. This is not a reinvention, it's a return. You no longer beg to be liked. You no longer perform to be chosen. You begin to see that self-respect is louder than applause. That solitude is not loneliness, but sacred clarity. That being misunderstood is the price of being honest. You start to say things like, "This is what I believe. I'm not okay with that. I don't need your approval." And with each sentence, your spine straightens. Your energy shifts. You stop apologizing for existing. You realize you are not here to be digestible. You are not here to be convenient, quiet, palatable. You are here to be real, to speak with fire, to feel fully, to live with spine and soul intact. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. Not perfect, not polished, but whole. It is the integration of every fragment you once abandoned. The anger you buried, the voice you silenced, the love you withheld from yourself, you gather them all, piece by piece, and instead of seeing them as flaws, you welcome them home. This is not a comfortable path. It's not glamorous. It doesn't guarantee success or followers or endless smiles, but it gives you something the world cannot take away: integrity. You no longer shift with the tides of other people's expectations. You become an anchor. And though you may lose many things along the way, relationships, roles, illusions, you gain something greater. You gain you. Not the edited version, not the polite version, the unfiltered, raw, radiant you. And in that stillness, in that truth, you find the one thing the persona could never give: peace. She was the reliable one, the one who always answered the phone, showed up, smiled, agreed, said yes, even when she wanted to say no. Especially then. She was the glue in every room, the fixer, the listener, the emotional safety net for everyone but herself. Until one day she didn't show up. The message came through, but she didn't reply. She saw the request, but said no. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of something far more radical: self-respect. At first, the silence felt unbearable. The guilt, the fear of losing people she had worked so hard to keep. But what she didn't expect was the calm that followed. No one celebrated her decision. No one clapped. Some were disappointed, some angry. A few disappeared. But for the first time in her life, she didn't disappear with them. She sat in the discomfort, and something inside her clicked. A knowing, a quiet, immovable truth. She had spent her whole life making sure others were okay, but she had never asked if she was okay. She had built a world where she was needed, but never truly known. And now, finally, she had chosen truth over comfort, solitude over performance, realness over belonging. And in that space, something sacred emerged. Not happiness, not applause, but peace. Are you ready to disappoint the world? To finally stop disappointing yourself? Are you willing to be misunderstood, to be disliked, to be alone, if it means you'll finally be whole? Because here's the final truth. The cost of authenticity is rejection, but the reward is liberation. You'll lose people. You'll lose approval. You'll lose the version of you that everyone clung to. But you'll find something far more valuable. You'll find your voice, your values, your power, your peace. And in a world obsessed with being liked, that's the rarest form of freedom. The journey isn't glamorous. It's not loud. It won't always be seen or celebrated. But it's yours. No more pretending, no more pleasing, no more shrinking just to make others comfortable. You are not here to perform. You are here to live. And that life begins the moment you choose yourself. In the next video, we'll go one layer deeper into how society uses guilt and praise to control you, and how to finally break that invisible leash for good. You don't want to miss it. So if this woke something up in you, subscribe, comment below, and tell me, what's the one thing you're finally ready to say no to? Because your silence served them, but your truth, that serves you. And we're just getting started.